Welcome, everybody, to this session at Demand Gen Summit. I want to thank the team at Signals for inviting me to speak to you today. Today, I want to talk to you about a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. We're going to talk about how to navigate the trust barrier when it comes to persuading skeptical IT buyers. I want to give you in-depth stories of what practitioners are telling me. I want to give you my own personal backstory of how I got there and where we are today, and effective marketing strategies to actually resonate with IT buyers today. So let's get started. All right. So several of us are marketers here. My assumption there maybe are some sales pros, but as marketers, we've been hired to persuade busy and stressed out buyers to purchase from us. I'm here today to tell you to stop that and do the exact opposite. My name is Danny Wolf. I'm the CEO and founder of Audience First. Audience First is a cybersecurity customer research agency where we interview busy tech buyers and provide qualitative insights to security firms so that they can better sell to them and more predictably scale growth. In 2010, I accidentally found tech. I've been in the security space for about 6 years. Fortunately, had one exit with Guardicore, sold to Akamai, one of the best companies I've worked for. I'm pretty proud to say this. Along my journey, I pissed off one IT buyer, and we'll get to that very, very shortly. I am a newly minted VP marketing over at the Cybernest, which is a community of IT practitioners and security pros. Fun fact about me is that I am borderline obsessed with coffee and ice cream, mostly obsessed with coffee and ice cream together. Fabulous combination. By the way, if any of you do not have something to drink right now with you at your table, please, by all means, step aside and get that. Otherwise, this session could just be an email or a podcast. So I have a confession. I've been a digital and demand gen marketer for almost 15 years. 6 of those in the security industry, as I said. And for nearly a decade as a marketer, I've spent maybe 50% of my time relentlessly trying to persuade my audience and get their attention, using trivial tasks and tactics that had absolutely no impact on my business and revenue goals. So take a look at this vicious status quo cycle, right? We pour lots of money into channels and bet on programs that are unpredictable and don't necessarily resonate with our buyers. Paid advertising, content syndication to get leads that aren't target ICP or don't even have intent. Big events, big trade shows, huge booths, dinners, executive dinners that go nowhere. We sometimes hire outsourced SDRs. Now, I'm not saying that these are necessarily bad. I just think that they aren't the best when it comes to IT marketing, because these channels aren't channels that necessarily resonate with our buyers. But what's worse is that when we do acquire the customer through channels like this, as marketers, we're ghosting them. And then we're starting the cycle again. We're going back to pour more money for net new ARR, right? And net new customer acquisition. But the customer is left with no engagement. What happens is that causes a poor customer experience. Customers are disgruntled. What happens then is that the cost of acquisition is super high and that value of the unengaged customer is low. So in spending 50% of my time investing in trivial tasks, what happened was that there was no positive impact on my customer's experience, which was the worst, right? What happened next was that I felt overwhelmed and stressed from those aggressive growth goals, right? I was worried about my career growth and I got so bored doing things that didn't resonate with my customers that I eventually burnt out. And just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, it absolutely did. I poked the bear. The bear here is Chris Roberts. Now, if any of you have listened to my podcast or follow me on LinkedIn, you know who Mr. Roberts is. And for those of you who don't, he is the previous CISO at Boom Supersonic and currently hacker researcher, security executive. He's pretty popular for his brutal honesty when it comes to marketing and sales practices. So back to the Boop story. Imagine a grizzly bear with a painted purple beard, a taser in one hand, and a wet fish in the other, ready to smack some sense into you at any moment. That was the mental picture that I had of Chris when I virtually met him the first time during a website audit session when I worked over at a security firm. He was disgruntled because I used a buzzword in the completely wrong context. And I could hear him over the Jabra in the conference room. Whoever said that, take them out back and taser them right now. Actually, it probably was much worse than that in a very heavy Scottish accent. But in any case, you get the picture. And on that day, my life as a security marketer completely changed. I mean, I was taken aback by that response. So I was faced with this deep internal dilemma. You could take the blue pill and the story ends. I wake up in my bed and I believe whatever I want to the next day, continue as I am and see where my career takes me. Or I could take the red pill and go to a new world, down a new rabbit hole, and see how deep that rabbit hole gets. In facing this intersection, remember, all I am offering is the truth, nothing more, right? And all I wanted was the truth because I could handle the truth. And so, in experiencing that encounter with Chris, where he wanted to taser me and he was very disgruntled and pissed off, I wanted to know why. Why, Mr. Roberts? Why, Chris, did I piss you off? And so, questions like, what didn't work for you? Or what could I have done differently? How does that different approach impact your goals? What are your goals? So I became so obsessed with asking questions and getting feedback that I made a commitment to dedicate every single week to learning how to interview one ideal customer so I could never feel or never cause that frustration that was felt on that day with Chris. Now, let's fast forward to this moment in time today on May 15th. Despite consistent year over year recommendations to do customer research and my best efforts providing free customer research on the podcast, on LinkedIn, at events, at companies, one-on-one with marketers and sales professionals, many of us still do this. Take this in for a moment. We do this among other things that piss off security practitioners and IT buyers. And I want to give a shout out to my man, Clark Barron, who hooked us up with this awesome meme. This is a meme, I think, from 2 or 3 years ago, still completely relevant, unfortunately. Now, when we do this, does it mean that we're bad marketers? I don't think so. Have we failed as an industry? I also don't think so. I think what's happened is that we haven't gotten out of our comfort zones yet, right? Our trivial habits that are bad for us and our customers, our warm, fuzzy marketing caves, and our echo chambers that we oh so love to stay in, right? So, to succeed in resonating with buyers, to exponentially grow business and help the actual professionals do their jobs better, our customers, we need to affect change. And affecting change is difficult. What needs to happen is that we need to stop pushing for attention. We need to put our audiences first, and we need to go back to the foundations to truly understand them better. To do that, though, I really need your help. And so today I want to cover a few things. What are we going to cover? To affect change, we need to understand a few things. We need to understand why IT buyers are so skeptical. We need to understand what trust actually looks like, because it's one thing to say, oh, you got to trust your buyers and they need to trust you and you need to be a trusted advisor. Okay, we could say that all day, but what does it actually look like tactically so that we can take that to our jobs tomorrow? I'm going to give you actual anecdotes and stories from true IT practitioners on how to engage them, how to acquire them, and how to retain them. And then if there are any questions, I'd be happy for you to ask me anything. Please be gentle. If there's no time during the sessions, please reach out to me. There's a link to my LinkedIn profile at the end of this deck. So why are IT buyers so skeptical? Why have we gotten into this unfortunate circumstance where we can't get the time of day with them? When IT buyers are on the lookout for new tools or solutions, they're not just shopping, they're on a mission, right? They need something that doesn't just meet their needs, but fits perfectly within their existing infrastructure, right? And because of this complexity, they're naturally going to be a bit on the fence about vendors. They are so inundated with technology out there that they're thinking, okay, well, will this really work for us? Can we trust it to mesh with what we already have? It's a big decision. It's our job to help them make that leap with confidence. Not to mention the sea of products out there, each one backed by a mountain of marketing claims and heaps of technical information and technical details, sometimes fluff details as well. Every day there's more to sift through. And now with AI, right, there's even more to sift through. So for IT buyers, this creates a real challenge, and they're trying to figure out which products actually deliver value for their specific situation. I want to talk about and highlight the traditional, status quo marketing tactics that we saw just earlier: cold calling, mass emails, broad advertising campaigns. That just falls flat with buyers who prefer relevance and insight and progress over interruption and volume. High pressure sales tactics and aggressive follow-ups without context, aiming for quick wins, transactions, and creating false urgency, or even FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, only serve to alienate. This is a huge one that has been said to me time and time again. A lot of the IT folks that have been through the ringer with products, they just didn't live up to the hype. They've spent money, they've spent time, they've spent effort on solutions that promised one thing, but barely got off the ground. And so when things go south, they're back to square one in their busy lives, hunting for something that actually works. So it's no wonder they're not jumping for joy every time a new vendor comes knocking, because they're worried that they're going to fall flat on their face. We saw that little ghost icon earlier in a previous slide, but let's talk about what happens after the sale, because this is another insight that's been told to me. This is where things can really go sideways. And this is where this could hurt you the most, because, fun fact, it costs less to retain a customer than it does to acquire one. So if a vendor is all about closing the deal, but then disappears, when it comes to support, when it comes to training, or just any relationship building, or any kind of help after they've handed over the cash, that's a huge red flag, right? IT products aren't set it and forget it. They need updates, they need tweaks, they need some hand holding. And sometimes that helping hand, is required to integrate smoothly into what you've already got going on in their environment. I want to talk about this because sometimes, marketers and sales professionals overlook this. IT decisions often involve substantial investments, and that can significantly impact an organization's operational efficiency, their security, and their competitiveness. And so a wrong choice can lead to downtime, can lead to data breaches or compatibility issues, which in turn can cost a company financially and damage its reputation. But in some places, if you're the IT pro who dropped the ball on security, for example, on compliance, for example, you could find yourself in legal hot water. You probably have heard some massive stories in the news. Uber, for example. Ending up behind bars is pretty rare, but it's not impossible, especially if someone thinks you've, been playing fast and loose, or not shouting loud enough when you spot a problem. So yes, I've provided a lot of maybe negativity in the last few minutes, but there's something that we can do about it. What do we do about this? And the answer is to build trust with IT buyers. Why, you may be asking? Building trust isn't just about feeling good. It's about smart risk management for both sides. When an IT buyer trusts what a vendor says about their product's performance, security, reliability, it lowers the chances of running into unexpected problems or holes in the new tech. This also lays the foundation for lasting relationships, which is required in B2B marketing. For you guys, marketers and sales pros here, or even founders maybe who are on this session, trust doesn't always make things nicer, but it makes the whole sales process a whole lot smoother and quicker. So when an IT buyer already trusts you as a vendor, they're more likely to have that vendor at the top of their list from the get-go, need less convincing, and come to a decision quicker. And one of the CISOs that I talked to, chief information security officers that I talked to maybe a year and a half ago, it said, yes, you have ARR, but when you build trust and lasting relationships and you manage to hook that trusted advisor status, you take your PAR with you, your PARR, your potential annual recurring revenue with you wherever you go. All right. How do we actually establish trust with skeptical IT buyers? Here we go. This is a model that I've used for the last few years, and it's worked wonders with me. I've built a massive network of security practitioners using this method, and it does require a mindset shift. It takes time, but we're going to go through the steps tactically. Before you can create value and ask for any transactional request, the transactional request is what I call the outer shift. We're going to get to that in just a bit. You have to go through an inner shift. Here's the mindset shift we're talking about. An inner shift is a move from a profits over people mindset, strictly transactional, to a people over profits mindset. So first step is to become genuinely curious. Becoming genuinely curious means that you actually have a desire to uncover known unknowns, what you know you don't know, unknown unknowns, what you don't know, and validating the known knowns, what you know you know. I know that sounds maybe a little bit complex and confusing, but I'm challenging you to dig in deep with regards to things that you know of your customers, that you don't know of your customers, and that you don't know of your customers, if that makes sense. Once you've managed to become deeply curious, we have to become empathetic. This is the systematic work you do to identify your buyer's pain, your buyer's needs. You need to truly understand what they are going through at any given moment in time. Because remember, people are dynamic, markets shift, people shift, the world changes. The third step in this inner shift is becoming or being likable. And this is the ability to be pleasant towards others in order to make them feel good, but not at the expense of your credibility, doing what is right. You can use these three characteristics to maintain trust. And being trustworthy is the ability to be transparent, reliable, accountable, and resourceful with no hidden agendas. And as I mentioned, gaining trust reduces risk for you and your buyers. So this trust is reinforced by the outer shift, the tactical things that we're so used to doing, but we don't foster first that inner shift. The outer shift is a move from the shady tactics that piss off security buyers or IT buyers, skeptical buyers, to healthy tactics that empower them and reduce complexity for buyers. And in order to do that, there are tactics that we need to pursue. Here's how it starts. We have to begin by actively listening. This demonstrates that you are actually paying attention to what someone else is saying versus only listening to yourself and believing yourself. Beyond that, it's also reflecting back what that person is telling you about their experiences. Once you've actively listened, you need to establish that you understand. This is the ability for you to be aware of other people's feelings and put those feelings together to change the way they do things. Once you understand, you can start building those authentic connections. That's getting the conversation started. You could do that either through LinkedIn, through email. You can do that at events in person, physically, virtually, meet with your buyers. Once you've mastered that, then you can demonstrate value. You've understood, you've helped your buyer identify the pain that needs to be resolved. Sometimes they don't recognize that. And then you examine ways to solve that problem and provide feedback. And sometimes if you don't have that feedback, continue probing and asking for feedback yourself. And so a clear path to action will actually help further qualify and advance potential opportunities and deals. This shows you've listened. This shows you've done your homework. And this shows you are accountable and resourceful. Trust. Now, this is an important and most, in my opinion, most overlooked step in the trust building process. And it's retrospection and self-actualization. This means that you've actually understood whether you and your buyer are a fit at this current moment in time. If yes, continue that cycle of the inner and outer shift until you reach those mutual goals, which is progress in the organization for your customer, business value, ROI, and opportunity creation and revenue and business value and ROI. If not, continue the cycle of the inner shift, which is that listening, curiosity, likability, empathy, and then the outer shift at a later time when you believe, feel, or validate that the customer is ready. This is what the ideal state that we should be getting to as organizations, out of our silos and into a full life cycle where we as founders, product owners, marketers, sales, and customer success owners can establish that trust in the middle, get the prioritized customer data, intel, and understanding, and apply it to our business throughout the whole customer lifecycle. And what happens then is that we align everything about the customer to the business. We improve our customer experience. We have more effective go-to-market strategies. We increase referrals. We get that more predictable growth at a lower cost of customer acquisition and a higher value of engaged customer. So how do we actually start the conversation with an IT buyer without getting tasered? How do we establish that awareness? I'm going to give you some stories on how we start that. So Joe is a good friend of mine working over at Delinea. He's a chief security scientist, and he's the one who told me and taught me what people over profits means. Ryan as well, another gentleman who you'll see in this deck as well. But there are a lot of people out there in this industry, in the tech space, who are just out there for the dollar. And that's fair. You know, you need to make money, you need to put food on the table. Awesome. But when you work in difficult spaces like security, and security is a difficult space to be in because we're working with bad people, adversaries, it's hard when you're not here for the people. We need to understand that people are the goals. And so everything we need to do is to help them. We need to help them be successful. This is Chris Roberts, by the way. This is the bear that I poked a few years ago. I think four or 5 years ago. Chris and I have a podcast together called WTF Did I Just Read? Tech Sales and Marketing Edition. And we tear down the worst marketing and sales messages in security. We build it back up to provide a better alternative approach to outreach. And the first thing that Chris tells me every single time is be curious. Open arms, learn who I am, do your research. IT buyers, particularly security practitioners, regularly express their frustration with the high volume of sales messages they receive and the lack of personalization. And so they always emphasize to me that they need a bi-directional conversation where both parties can learn from each other. Chris Elliott, Director of Security over at Security Operations over at SoFi, says, let's just have a more informal interaction, right? I don't need a fancy steak dinner. Let's just go have some beer and tacos. You know, let's talk about what's going on. Now, how do I get a skeptical IT buyer to actually buy from me? I've done the work. I've established the relationship. I've, done my research. I understand your priorities. I've started to establish value, create experiences for specific audience segments, because not everybody has the same goal. Not everybody has the same job. We can never bucket them into one broad segment, right? Companies using a one-size-fits-all approach risk missing effectively engaging buyers in crucial segments of their target accounts. Here's Joe again, who says, teach me things that I didn't know before. And I know that's kind of hard to do, but we need to make them more knowledgeable. This is why curiosity is so important. This is why research is so important in understanding people. Beyond that, respecting a buyer's time is important. So we have to offer not only educational content in variety of formats, we have to do that because we need to allow those buyers to decide how they want to consume that content and when. Looking at types of content that resonate with buyer. This is actually data from a survey that I ran last year. I surveyed a pool of chief information security officers and I asked them, okay, what kind of messaging and formats of messaging resonates with you? And 85% said they want content that shows how they can create business outcomes. They want content that shows customer stories. And only then 36%, or is that 36? 34% say they want industry trends and benchmarks. And then a whopping 12% said they wanted technical specs and features. I see ambulance chasing, FUD, negativity all over the place. It is not a good look. It is not helpful for any practitioner. Leveraging negative press events as a marketing tactic can backfire. It's not a favorable approach. Trust me. Negative, fear-based marketing, especially when it's capitalizing on other people's misfortunes, it can tarnish your brand, and it could, turn potential clients away. Jenny says, avoid excessive jargon and buzzwords. We're good at, using buzzwords. But with IT buyers, all you're going to do is turn them off. This causes prospects to disengage. It's fluffy. Just tell them what it is in a clear and concise way. What are buzzwords, by the way? If some of you don't know what buzzwords are, popular terms or phrases, overused trends, advancements in technology that aren't yet fleshed out, cultural shifts. Now, to refrain from using buzzwords, marketing teams need to reach out to people who do buzzword bingos and see through the message. This was a great piece of advice from a CISO that I spoke to last year. And so I had a great idea. What if I could actually walk in the shoes of the buyers at a conference, do buzzword bingo, and see how many vendors' booths are utilizing buzzwords based off of an actual valid buzzword bingo card that was created by a security practitioner and validated amongst the community. Challenge accepted. And so what I did was I did buzzword bingo. I scanned and photographed the hall at RSA, which is the largest security conference in the world, I believe. I think it's about 30,000 attendees go. It's crazy. Like this year, I just came back from RSA at the end of last week. There were 644 booths. It was insanely huge. So I basically scanned the booths, analyzed the messaging against buzzword bingo, and created an actual report to see how many vendors are utilizing buzzwords. And this is last year's data. We actually did this. We actually scanned the expo floor again this year, last week, and 353 last year was 50% or 54%. This year, we scanned 644 booths in one day. We didn't have 2 thrown out backs this year. We had 5 volunteers, 10 swollen feet, carpal tunnel for sure. This year, we didn't have thousands of death stares. People were actually really nice this year. And this year, we're actually surveying 100 security buyers, which is going to be great. So what we found last year is that 81% of the booths that we scanned used buzzwords in their messaging at varying degrees. Most only used 1. Some used 5 or more. What was interesting in the survey that we ran last year amongst the buyers is that majority of them that were surveyed said that the use of buzzwords is a 10 out of 10 painfully annoying. And the actual buzzwords that were most overused and effective were AI, ML, zero trust, next gen, blockchain, cloud security, XDR, and turnkey. Same goes. So we're surveying them now, and most are saying AI and ML and zero trust are being still being overused and ineffective. Be honest about your product and what it can and cannot do. Tal, who's the CISO over at Carlsberg, love Carlsberg beer, by the way, says none of us are going to read 100 pages. We don't have time. Cut the bull and just provide us as much focused material as possible. Malia says, show, don't tell. Don't just tell. Win me over with a 2-minute demo. Again, we talked about time being crucial, a crucial element in an IT buyer's job and life. Give me the gist in 2 minutes and actually doing a live demo, right? Show me the code behind it, show me how easy it is to integrate, and show the different challenges that can be overcome with a product. And this is a huge one, Gary, who's actually a good friend, and I deeply appreciate this gentleman. He says, set the pricing expectations early before the POCs. Because when you surprise me and you jack me with a price, that's game over. It's not going to float. Because they already know what's going to be acceptable with the CFO. Again, we're trying to reduce the friction in the buying cycle here, right? So just be transparent and honest. No games. Nick says, make the POC process more secure and frictionless. He's told me that vendors literally wanted to see everything in their environment, and that's kind of shady for them. Well, why do you need everything in my tenant? That's heavy lift. Again, they're skeptical. Give them the gist, give them what they're looking for quickly to show value in order to progress in the proof of concept. This is the gentleman, by the way, who told me about PAR. We carry PAR everywhere. So provide value at all stages, nurture those relationships so that you can carry your pipeline wherever you go next, right? You didn't lose a customer until the contract expires. You have continuous partners. How do you retain customers and turn them into loyal advocates? Again, we've talked about no ghosting, right? Chris said that he actually was sold a tool and no one called him back until it was the end of the quarter. Ferd says, keep customer support lines exceptionally short. Even after the sale, they need to continue feeling valued. This is a huge one, right? Peer-to-peer communities. This is why I joined the Cybernest, by the way, is to foster and continue building security communities and IT communities and peer-to-peer communities so that they could get the value they need. They could connect with one another and ask for advice. This is Cecil, by the way. Cecil is a great friend. He's an active CISO, Cecil the CISO. He has a full-time job, and he's established his own community and actually kicked off a huge conference in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And it's a nonprofit, and all of the proceeds go to organizations and charities that their community cares about. I mean, that's huge. What if you could sponsor that, right? For their own benefit, right? For their own learning. It's not about the transaction. It's about enriching their lives. That's me, by the way. It was so much fun to meet these guys. Huge conference, Black Hat, so much fun. Last but not least, be here for the full journey, not just the sale. This is a long play. If you're in B2B, it's a long play. And I'd say take feedback to heart because buyers may return. Now, if there are any questions, please reach out to me by all means. I know I probably went over time, but this was a great session, and I hope it was super valuable for you. If you're interested in downloading the report, this is the 2023 report. We're working on the 2024 report. Like I said, we just got back from RSA, so we're analyzing all the data, 644 booths. And if you want to connect with me, by all means, please do. I'd love to chat with you. I'd love to learn about what you guys are doing and see how we could mutually help each other. And I'd love your feedback. If this was great, awesome, let me know. If it sucked and was not helpful, let me know as well. I prefer constructive criticism because I want to get better. So thank you again. And thank you for everybody over at Signals Demand Gen Summit. It was awesome. Much appreciated. Have a great day, everybody. Stay curious.